Hello, my name is Bob Hammond. I'm Kennewick City Manager, and I'm here today with Marie Mosley. Marie is our Executive Director of Support Services for the city and is the guru of all the money and helps us make sure we do good business and spend that money well. But today what we'd like to talk about is something we're very excited that we're blessed to have, and that's this Southridge area local revitalization plan. And it starts with, so the purpose we have today is to speak to what local revitalization financing really is, talk about what infrastructure, the roads and the facilities and the pipelines and stuff in the city, what we intend to build through this program, help people understand the value of the program, why they should be grateful as we are that we have this, and talk about also the need to promote growth and what growth means to a city. And maybe mostly important as a purpose is to try to help people understand that we're doing this without increasing any taxes, and that's something that's very important to us. It's one of the things that our city council, which we're very blessed to work for, gives us as a directive, is to try to stretch the existing tax dollars and not always be asking for more. So anyway, we're happy to do that, and I'm going to start by asking you, Marie, to talk to us a little bit about what local revitalization. We'll talk about this as LRF later on, but it's local revitalization financing, and what is that?
Sure, thanks, Bob. Actually, during the 2009 legislative session, the legislators implemented this new, what is considered a tax increment financing type of program.
What does that mean?
Yes, it's a way to bring in new revenue sources to the city through additional taxes that come in based on that development that occurs.
So no new taxes.
New taxes through development. So new state sales and local sales and state property and local property taxes that come in based on new development. So essentially what the legislature did during the 2009 legislative session, they recognized that we needed to stimulate the economy, that we were having some economic downturns. And so this legislation was specifically designed for infrastructure improvements to an area that would promote community and economic development. They were also looking that they wanted to make sure it stimulated business activity, that it helped create new jobs in an area, that it increased private investment, and that really, as I kind of mentioned at the beginning, is that it increased state and local taxes. And so those taxes, those increased taxes, are what are used to pay for the infrastructure improvements. So essentially the way that it works is that the state allocated $2.5 million annually for up to 25 years to actually have infrastructure improvements in a city that would help spur economic development. And each city had to apply. Any city could apply multiple times. It wasn't just one project per city, but a project that would meet those criteria that they actually outlined. Up to $500,000. A project could receive $500,000 annually for 25 years.
So a city couldn't get more than the $500,000 per year.
Per project,
per
right.
project.
So a city could apply for more than one project, but it had to meet those requirements.
All right.
And so we took a look, and we recognized that our Southridge area met the requirements of this, that it was ready for economic development. You needed to have a private developer that was ready to develop out there, and infrastructure improvements needed to be made, and the $500,000 that the state was going to give you for this had to be used to pay debt service. So essentially you had to issue bonds and put the infrastructure in. So the theory behind that is that instead of paying for the infrastructure over a 25-year period, you actually put the infrastructure in, And we issued $13.6 million worth of bonds so that we have the upfront money to put the infrastructure in, and then you pay for it over the 25 years. And the way that we were intending to pay for it is through a state sales tax credit. However, in order to get the state sales tax credit, the state is requiring that they receive in state and property tax increments, which that means new development that occurs, their new sales tax and property taxes that go to the state equal $500,000 or more. And then they'll give us a state sales tax credit. So as you mentioned at the very beginning, it's not an additional tax. The taxpayers pay the same amount, but they'll give us a credit from what they receive in their state sales tax to pay for debt service on the bonds that we issue and the improvements that we do.
Wow.
I know. That's a lot of information.
So let me try to see if I can summarize what I'm hearing. So we have this thing out there that's the perfect storm that meets this new program criteria that the state put in a new legislation. And it does that by having a developer that's ready to go. The idea is to accelerate and have growth happen more quickly in that area by allowing any new taxes that are generated, or a portion of the new taxes that are generated, instead of going to the state, to come back and help build the infrastructure that helps accelerate that. Okay.
Yes,
and the infrastructure,
very well said.
you're talking about the roads and that stuff. And you mentioned bonds, and some people may not be up to speed on what a bond is, but isn't that just
It's financing. Mm-hmm.
So we get the money up front, we have to pay the interest, and that's
Yes.
what we call debt service.
That's correct.
Okay.
And on this $13.6 million in bonds that we just issued, the debt service that we call, the financing, the paying back of those, of that financing is about $860,000. And as we just talked about, $500,000 of that is coming from the state through a state sales tax credit. And then we've also entered into some partnerships that I believe you're going to be talking about as well, Bob, that they're providing about $150,000 to this project, and then that leaves about $200,000 that we believe we're going to get, the City of Kennewick will receive through additional property and sales taxes through this development that occurs. But you were going to mention a little bit about some of the partnerships that we have in
Yes,
this.
and I love that word. Our council loves us to do partnerships, and in this case, this is one of those where we have both public and private partners in this. You've mentioned the developer, and there's actually more than one developer
Yes.
out there, and this couldn't have worked unless they were ready to go, unless they had invested a lot of their own money to have this ready to go, because in order to get these taxes, like you were saying, back, we have to be generating the taxes first. And so that means we got to get things built, we got to get property tax and sales tax from construction. You know, talking about partnerships, one of the big ones we have is with Kennewick General Hospital. And in a couple of ways, they're part of that $150,000. They have committed that some of the new taxes that they would get back, they will bring back over to us. And I can't remember the amount of theirs. Theirs wasn't the largest portion. I think Benton County's
That's
was the
correct.
largest portion that was going to come back, and that was, I think, close to $100,000 or in the $80,000 a year
Yes.
range. So we're getting some of that help that way. The Port of Kennewick, which has been a great partner of the city in many ways over time, and areas of the city, they're also dedicating some of their taxes back in this. So those three make up that $150,000 a year that could come back. So let me get this straight. You're talking about we get $13.6 million in. We're paying around $200,000 a year, and we think we'll get 300 or 400, even from what we know right now, ourselves in from that. So this is why we're saying this happens without any new taxes from citizens.